Thank you very much. I mostly don't take boring jobs, but I've been given a very boring job today. So I know I'll struggle with it, but I'll make sure that I keep looking at your faces, and when I find these blank looks, I wrap up the conversation. So if you get bored with it, please give me a blank look and I'll take your signal. From my perspective, we're a simple country. We have a simple vision. And in that simple vision, we want to see prosperity for our people. That's it. We want prosperity. If you look at the population, about 50% of the population is around the age of 19, 20. And the number grows exponentially as you move up to 35. So what do we need? We need employment. So we're a country which wants to be prosperous. We're a country which would like to create employment, and we're a country which would like to create a lot of employment for our people. We have some external sector problems. We are going through a lot of problems. And one of the problems that we're going through is the external sector, the trade deficit. So we'd like to focus on exports as well. So these are, at the very high level, these are the three large objectives: to create a country where people can take care of their children, send them to school, take care of their elders, take them to hospitals, have gainful employment, live happily, export some, use some, and be a country in the comity of nations, a country which is remarkable only in taking care of its own people. That's our vision. We have a strategy as well. And because I'm going to bore you more with the energy strategy, I'm just going to skim through this. Our strategy is twin-pronged. We have a strategy for our urban areas, and we have a strategy for our rural areas. In urban areas, rather than giving $4 to $5 billion to 50 corporations, we've decided to create SMEs. We have starry-eyed young men and women who come out of colleges, and they don't find any place where they can get the startup capital to build small businesses. So we are committed to building small to medium-sized enterprises in urban areas. That's our strategy. So rather than focusing on trophies, $5 billion trophy which creates 500 jobs, we'd much rather create 40 lakh rupees, 60 lakh rupees kind of a small startup business which gives employment to about 3 people, 7 people, 10 people. And everyone in this room knows that about 60 to 80% of the employment nearly in every country of the world comes from SMEs. So we are no different. We also have an urban strategy of creating an IT infrastructure. And I think the Prime Minister has already spoken about it repeatedly. We are sending out hundreds of thousands of students, not 5,000, 10,000, hundreds of thousands of students to get trained in machine learning and AI. We believe that these young men and women who right now aspire to go abroad can stay in the country and plug themselves in the global value chains. Stay here, send their kids to local schools, be in their own community, take care of their parents, while plugging into global value chains and earning dollars. And for that we need training. So when the question is simple, the answer is simple. We'll train. And we have a number of contracts right now already ongoing within China, where every year we're going to send tens of thousands of students to go and get trained in machine learning and AI. And we very firmly believe that as the future moves towards this fantastic fantasia, our kids would plug into it. These dreamy-eyed young men and women who come out of colleges, they'd be the rock stars. And all of these pictures that you see on the wall right now, they'd be replaced. Not one of them would be left. And there'd be all young men and women coming out of colleges right now whose pictures you'd see on these walls in the next 10 years. Our strategy for the rural area is even simpler. 50%, more than 50%, 55% of our population, of our people, employment of our people is in the rural areas. And our productivity is very low. Our productivity is half of what the productivity, agricultural productivity is in other parts of the world. So we are committed to improving the productivity. For the same acreage, for the same unit of water used, we're going to try to produce twice as much. That's our first strategy. That will take care of 50%, 55% of the population of Pakistan which lives in rural areas. And as you know, although we're struggling, we're very slowly stabilizing and moving towards GDP growth, which is modest right now. But our GDP growth rate for last year in agriculture was 6.4%. 6.4%. Twice or thrice as much as our overall growth in the GDP. So what we are saying is already happening because we're already doing it. And inshallah, we'll continue to move in that direction. We also know that most of the agricultural produce that we have is perishable. You've seen fruits under the trees that rot. You've seen that. You've seen vegetables that never make it to the marketplace. So our strategy is to create not big industrial parks, but to create very small industrial farms. In every district, whatever people are producing, we'd like to do value addition. We'd like to make jams and spreads and pulps and cold value chains and cold supply chains so that about a third of our perishable goods, fruits and vegetables that get wasted, actually stepped over by our own feet, will create value out of them. And this value would be of export quality. So that's basically our strategy for the rural areas. So we have an urban area strategy, we have a rural area strategy. I've segmented and laid it out for you because if you carefully think about it, some of it is for mid-skilled people, some of it is for high-skilled people. The SME for mid-skilled people, the IT for high-skilled people, the productivity improvement for the existing agriculturists, and basically value addition for the forward-looking agriculturists. And all of this converges to what? Exports. IT is what? Exports. SMEs would form clusters, and what would the clusters do? Enhance exports. And what would value addition in the agricultural economy do? Exports. And if we can focus on these exports, some of the examples of which I've given to you, I think we'll get out of this mess. So I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that indeed we are going through difficult time. But we are going to go through with this because that's what makes Pakistan resilient, that's what makes Pakistanis resilient and great people. We've gone through a lot of hardship. There's a bit of hardship right now, but we'll go through this. This smoke screen would go away, and we'd begin to see the future that we've just laid out in a matter of hopefully a year or two. Now, do I further bore you with the energy, or is this good enough? I think this man is against you. I know that you would have been very happy and you would have clapped louder if I had walked. But this man has challenged me and said he wants to know about energy. So I'd bore you a little bit more. Look, we are a large country. We're about 240 million people, and we are growing at about 1.8%. We're also poised to grow between 3 and 4% GDP sustainably. That's the target. That's the sustainable growth target that we have. If we just look at our population growth, because every person born is going to require energy, Our energy needs are going to grow from 85 million tons of oil equivalent to 117, 120 million tons of oil equivalent. That's a significant increase from 85, to 120. And if we are able to, as we are committed to, grow as much as we are saying modest 3 to 4%, then these energy needs are going to move from 85 million tons of oil equivalent to roughly 170 million tons of oil equivalent, which means our requirements, our needs are going to double. That's a challenge because we need to have energy access. That's the first challenge. But that's not the only challenge that we have. We also have a challenge of affordability. Even if we are able to have energy, how good is that energy if the people of Pakistan cannot afford it? And right now, if you look at the affordability matrix, it's creating a lot of hardship. And it's because of this hardship that we are coming up with all of these plans, the federal government plan to give 50 billion for the first 200 units of electricity, and the provincial government to give another 14 rupees, what is it called, the support per unit, up to 500 units. So that clearly tells us that not only do we need energy, but we also need affordable energy. So that's basically the second important challenge. And the third challenge is that while our carbon footprint is minuscule, if you look at the heat map, you won't even find Pakistan anywhere in terms of its carbon footprint. I think the total carbon dioxide footprint is less than 200 metric tons of carbon dioxide per year. That's negligible, not even a dot. But we're still the 5th or 6th most vulnerable country in the world. We're vulnerable because we're lying like a valley at the footsteps of the Himalayas. And if the climate changes, we get washed away. And you're seeing a lot of flooding, you're seeing a lot of climate change, and you're seeing a lot of detrimental impact of this climate change. So our third objective is to make sure that whatever we do it in a sustainable manner. So we have 3 objectives: access, affordability, and sustainability, in exactly the same descending order. Why do I say descending order? Because countries that don't have issues of affordability and countries that don't have issues of access only have issues of sustainability. So the language that they speak is very different from the language that we speak. For them, the romantic idea is sustainable energy. For us, we have to take care of our people, supply energy, make it affordable, and make it sustainable in the same descending order. So those are our objectives for our energy strategy. We've built this energy strategy based upon 5 pillars. Number 1, indigenization. Number 2, optimization. Number 3, electrification. Number 4, liberalization. And number 5, innovation. So 5 pillars. 5 pillars which are going to give us access, affordability, and sustainability. What do these pillars mean? In terms of indigenization, which is the first pillar, first thing that we are doing is enhancing domestic production. And as you know, we have concessions that we've put out for domestic, for our on-land assets that we put out for bidding. And we are in the process right now of putting out offshore assets. We would like to produce energy in-house as much as possible. We are also have 2 policies right now, one for greenfield refineries and the other for brownfield refineries. We're improving our existing refineries in making them compliant with global standards, Euro 5 standards. We are also in the process of negotiating with global investors for a large 350 million barrel oil refinery. Why are we doing this? Because we want to indigenize. We want to produce crude as much as possible. We want to produce gas as much as possible, and we also want to refine it in-house so that we don't have to pay the premium for the refined petroleum products. And this way, we'll indigenize our energy. But how are we going to indigenize our energy in the long run? When you walk out on the street, what do you find? Heat. Where does it come from? Sun. So what do we have? Sun. Why would we not produce energy from sun? That's a question that baffles each one of us. So we have sun with such high radiation that the biggest chunk of indigenization over the next 10 years is going to come from solar energy. And many countries don't have this facility. But in our case, in the case of Pakistan, sun and wind are counter-cyclical. Our sun shines during the day, and we have a gusty wind through the corridors, particularly in Sindh, during the night. So if we come up with a hybrid solution of wind and sun, all of a sudden our plant factor or our availability goes up exponentially. So our third anchor for indigenization is basically to pull all guns blazing, move all guns blazing towards solar and renewable energy. So these three big ticket items, indigenization through domestic production, through domestic refinery, and solar, a hybrid, a combination of solar and wind energy, should give you confidence that we are going to indigenize a whole lot of our energy requirements. The second pillar that we have is optimization. What does optimization mean? Basically, we have a lot of energy loss. We have a lot of energy loss at our distribution companies. We also have an equal amount of energy loss in the way of UFG, which is unaccounted for gas, in the way of losses with our SUI companies. So we right now have a strategy through which we are going to contain these losses and optimize the system. We're in the process of privatizing our distribution companies, DISCOs, you guys know about it. And simultaneously we are preparing and corporatizing our distribution companies, gas distribution companies. The equivalent of a transformer in gas sector is TBS, town-based metering system. So right now, we are putting meters at every TBS, which means we are putting a meter at anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 households. There's the equivalent of a transformer from where all of the gas goes. We basically put meters there. We're breaking down the profit and loss statement at the TBS level. And an officer is going to be appointed who's going to give us the profit and loss statement for 3,000 households. He is or she is going to be responsible for fixing the lines, for fixing the theft, for enhancing the collections, and if they're not able to do that, they'll be removed. Consequently, we are very hopeful. We're already on a declining trend in terms of our losses, but we are very hopeful that moving forward in less than a year would show remarkable improvement in these losses. So if we improve on the losses of our distribution companies, we improve on the losses of our gas companies, we're going to optimize the system and create enormous value. That's our strategy. Simultaneously, we're trying to do WACOG. We're trying to put all of the gases together rather than having very expensive LNG. We're going to get rid of this distinction between LNG and non-LNG. Gas molecule is gas molecule, and there's some cost to that gas molecule. So we're going to put all our house in order and understand what the cost of that gas molecule is, and then optimize the system while protecting the poor. We are committed to protecting the poor, and that is the first and the paramount order, and we'd like you to hold us accountable to that. So these are our strategies for optimization. Our third idea is electrification. The third pillar is electrification. Look, you have to understand that just the way wind and sun are counter-cyclical, gas and electricity are counter-cyclical. In winters, we need gas for home heating and space heating and water heating. And in summers, we need air conditioning. So we have a surge of demand of electricity during the summers, and we have a surge of gas demand during the winters. When we produce electricity, 30,000 megawatts during the summers, and we are unable to use it in the winters when it falls to 10,000 megawatts, what do? We end up paying capacity. And everyone asks this question about IPPs and capacity. So it's solvable, no? If during the winter, all of the gas heating and all of the space and water heating is converted to electricity by providing lower cost electricity, the utilization of electricity would move from 10,000 megawatts to 25,000 megawatts. The capacity payments would collapse, the cost of electricity would come down, and it would become a self-reinforcing cycle. More electricity we use during the winter, less capacity we pay, more electricity is produced, lower cost electricity is produced, lower the cost of electricity goes, more people use it during the winters. So through this balancing act, over a period of time, we are going to clear up the system through electrification. That is our strategy. And in that, we are coming up with several ideas in terms of how to allocate low-cost gas for production of low-cost electricity so that people use it more during the winters, so that the capacity payments go down, so that the cost of electricity goes down, and so on and so forth. So the system would clear out. So this is our strategy for electrification. What we are also going to do to enhance the demand for electricity so that we don't pay capacity is electrical vehicles. How much complicated can that be? The entire world is producing EVs. And all of these two-wheelers and three-wheelers that you see on the streets, which are also a cause of pollution, very big cause of pollution. If all of them convert to electricity, electric vehicles, and you've seen those in other parts of the world where they bring in the battery, they plop the battery into your bike or into your three-wheeler, and off you go. And if all of these gas stations convert to those two-wheeler stations where you can get batteries, or three-wheelers where you can get batteries, and some of the affluent people, most of which are in this room right now, can also have electric cars. We do that, the demand of electricity goes up. The demand of electricity goes up. This difference between peak and low goes down. The difference goes down, the capacity payment goes down, the capacity payment goes down, the cost of electricity goes down, the cost of electricity goes down, energy becomes sustainable. That's our strategy that we are calling electrification. Our final strategy, not final, I'll bore you more, is liberalization. We're trying to conceive a new marketplace. We're saying, well, this government as the sole buyer, and sometimes government as the producer, and most often government as the regulator. What kind of nonsense is this? Why can't we conceive another marketplace? So we are right now in the process of conceiving an alternative marketplace. For example, just to give you an example, if SUI companies only were the transportation companies, only the pipe companies, and you in Lahore or Islamabad or Pindi or Sahiwal or Tandu Adam or Hyderabad could build up your own distribution companies through competition. All of the creativity in this room, if this was unleashed, and creative companies were created in Hyderabad and Sakkar and Peshawar and where else not. And you said, I will give you electricity, or I will give you power. I would be the distributor of power, and I would give you cheaper power, and I would give you more stable power, and I would give you... If all of this creativity could be unleashed, there'd be a marketplace at the distribution side. And in order to make sure that there's no elite capture, if an exchange was created where all of the producers could buy and sell gas, you guys could go to the exchange like you go to the stock exchange and buy equities and sell equities, and you can buy the gas at whatever rate the market basically clears it out. So now we have new businesses at the distribution level. We have a marketplace from which you can buy and sell. And these companies, these mammoths, whether they be SUI companies or distribution companies, are simply the transmission companies which either hold copper or hold the pipe. That's it. We're working on this conception. Is this conception complete? No. Because in this conception, as I said, the most important thing for us is to protect the poor. And that protection, to me, is not visible right now. What would happen to the poorest of the poor when only the private sector people want to sell to the most affluent? That question has to be absolutely answered before we move in this direction. But this is the direction in which we're moving. And we are committed to making sure that we present to you in a similar forum a strategy of how we are going to protect the poor while we continue to move in this direction. And last pillar is innovation. Now, who can dispute innovation? As I just said, tens and tens of thousands of kids we are going to train in AI and machine learning. And what do you think they're going to do? They're going to do machine learning and AI. And therefore, within our energy sector, we're going to move towards predictive maintenance. Predictive maintenance or smart grids or AI-driven grids, both in the petroleum sector as well as in the electricity sector, are global hubs for AI applications and machine learning applications. So we'll have trained people. We have a strong demand function, which is going to grow to twice as large as what we have right now in a few years. So hopefully we'd have a cluster of jobs for these AI-trained people. We're also going to do the circular economy, carbon economy. So waste to electricity, we are very carefully thinking about, making sure that it stays affordable. We are also thinking about the biofuels and ethanol and so on and so forth. Green hydrogen and green ammonia is our focus, but right now, without subsidy is not possible, and we don't have the subsidy, so we're building capacity and keeping an eye on it. And if any country would like to come into Pakistan with a subsidy package, they're most welcome to come and do green ammonia and green hydrogen here. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we do these 5 things, indigenization, optimization, electrification, liberalization, and innovation, we'd have access, affordability, and sustainability. And if we have access, affordability, and sustainability, we'd inshallah build the dream that we have, which I shared with you, where everyone would live with integrity, all of us would have employment, we'd live in Pakistan, take care of our parents, and provide great education to our children. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very